Years Later, The Bone Temple is directed by Nia DaCosta and stars Ralph Fiennes, Jack O'Connell, Alfie Williams, and among others. And in this story, it's the follow-up to 2025's 28 Years Later, in which it takes place right at the end of the last movie, where Spike ends up encountering the cultist group of the Jimmies, as they're called, led by Jack O'Connell. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if you've been seeing the trailers, essentially it deals with a plot that's involving with this cult that are getting into some really messed up things that are going around, and then you got this other story that's involving with Ralph Fiennes' character, who's the doctor that was from the last movie, who, long story short, he's trying to essentially help one of the fellow infected that's known as the Alpha, into a whole new level, so to speak, that kind of takes some inspiration from Day of the Dead. And I'll just leave it there. Now, here's some backstory. Now, this movie was directed by Nia DaCosta, who I've only seen a couple of films that she's done. I saw 2021's Candyman, which I did enjoy despite its issues, and then she did that. She also followed that up with the Marvels, which was the sequel to Captain Marvel. And while I wasn't really a huge fan of it, I still didn't think it was bad. I just think that it was just kind of forgettable. I think it was just kind of more of a mid-level type of MCU film. But with this one, it got me really excited because I really enjoyed the 28 Years Later from last year, and I've really loved this franchise since it started out with 28 Days and then 28 Weeks. And for many years, like I said in my previous review of 28 Years Later, I've been wanting to see how they would follow up with these movies after so long, because for many years we never really get for many years it was like, I was wondering if we were going to get 28 months later, but they waited so long to where they got into 28 years. So with this one, I was really excited to see where it goes, because all the different things they set up in the last film with Ralph Fiennes' character and then Jack O'Connell's character coming into play, it really made me curious to see how much more really messed up and macabre we were getting into, and also exploring more of the stuff that we probably haven't really seen before in the other films. And so, upon seeing it, this was everything I wanted to see out of 28 Years, and everything that I enjoyed about the first 28 Years Later, I think really skyrocketed with this one, with not only be able to push more of the boundaries, but it really explored a lot of cool stuff that we really evolved with when it comes to this world. And so, to get my pros out of the way, I thought the cast in this were fantastic. Alfie Williams, who played Spike in the last film, I think really shines here, where he had to get himself a lot more grounded this time, to where he's a lot more scared, and he's having to basically be caught up in this group, having to go around and do it, and he's witnessing them doing some really messed up things to the people they encounter and everything. And you could definitely see the tension that rises, especially when you really want, he just really doesn't want to be there. He's like, I got to get out of here. So he was great. And then, of course, Ralph Fiennes is always excellent as usual, coming back as the Doctor. And he really has some really funny moments in this that I can definitely see can be a little out there for those, but I still bought into it, because a character like this that's been living out in the wilderness and stuff, he's very obsessed with movies. He's very obsessed with music from Duran Duran. And there's even another there's also another group that I won't spoil, but it comes into play later on in the film. You're like, okay, I could see why they went with this type of music here. And so he was excellent. And then the other one that's really, the other two big standouts the most is definitely Jack O'Connell, who ever since last year, and even all the other film, even in 28 Years Later, I think that this guy really has so much potential of being really a great a villain in his movies, because with Sinners last year, it showed that this guy really is going places, and I really think he brings an intimidating presence. And here, he's no different, where he's definitely kind of plays that whole cult leader and stuff, and the way that he's doing his jimmies, getting into all kinds of really messed up things to abide by his powerful leader, so to speak. Won't go into spoilers, but he thinks that he's doing it for a good cause and everything, and all this to, for a higher power. And I love the way that the movie also comes into play, where both of the plots that come together, I think, have a really good contrast, where you got the Doctor having to pretty much look at life, and then you pretty much have the stuff going with Colt, who's trying to look at things in a more deftly manner. So the way it also unfolds in the middle half, when the two come together, I thought was a great way of how they tie things together and stuff, because it also feels like, to an extent, and keep in mind, they don't try to give any kind of redemption or anything, but just the way that Jimmy comes across Dr. Kelson in this, it's just their dialogue, it feels like they're in a whole different level, because it's like he's somebody that he can really latch onto and actually kind of connect with, so to speak. And so I really appreciate how these two that come together, they're able to kind of come to terms on things. And plus, also, I got to give it a lot of credit with the other one that they set up with Samson, the main alpha infect in this, because the ways they explore more about the infected in this time with trying to take this idea of them trying to regain sort of like a human side to himself and everything, I thought was a really interesting concept. And the way they play into it, I thought really showed the ground that, you know, there's still something hidden in there that that this main infected can't really see. But with Ralph Fiennes' character, he's teaching the ways to try to get back to it. And the way it plays out in its ending, I thought was not only really well done, but it really makes you really wonder how they're going to tie this in with the next movie. And the gore in this, they don't hold back either with, especially with a lot of the, you know, decapitations, a lot of the, well, you get mostly like other stuff that's involving where the Jimmies are like killing people and stuff, but you get also your zombie action that's taking place, and it gets pretty gory as usual, and you know, it definitely goes for it. And then one of the other biggest strong points is the music that they play, especially from like Duran Duran. They also bring back music that's also very familiar if you've seen some of the other films, and so I'm gonna leave it there. And well, I also got to really appreciate the cinematography, and then not to mention it's got a really great ending that really sets things into fold. And I don't know how this movie's going to do because I haven't really been hearing it's not really doing too well financially, but if it gets a third one, I'm definitely down because I do want to see how this plays out in the third one because it's got me so excited, especially with that ending they set up where it goes for something that I kind of knew going into it, but I'm glad that it went with that approach. And so there's more I can go into detail, but I mean I don't really have much really flaws with this other than that there's more they could have probably explored with like seeing more of the brutality of what the Jimmies could do in certain parts and everything. But the way they played it all together and stuff, I think worked for the most part. And while there might be some points where things can get a little repetitive, where the doctor is kind of like, you know, doing the whole dance and stuff a couple times, it did get a little repetitive in some things because it's just a lot of the rinse and repeat of what he's doing on a couple times. But other than that, that's just like some really minor nitpicks that I kind of that really got to me. And so overall, this is already a great start with 2026. I'm gonna put this. This is gonna be on my best of list of the year. And so with that, I'm gonna give the movie a phenomenal grade on the Film Freaks meter. So for those of you who have also seen 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, and also the other films, let me know in the comments of what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.